अष्टप्रायेष भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्त भवती नष्टकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टां स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादां सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी भाषताय देशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम पदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौतुसे नमः। वंशकल्पातरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे। Hare Krishna. So, doing a quick recap of the third chapter, there were many things discussed. So, third chapter, as the story is building up, at the beginning of the third chapter, we saw that how Brahmaji have reinstituted Daksha as the head of the Prajapati. And now Daksha is hosting a grand party. So, this is a party season, New Year party. But the party in those times used to be a little different. I believe some of you would have had that experience while growing up. Our as such family get together, what do you call a celebration, used to be around some kind of yajna, some kind of worship. Like in North, Durga ka Jagran, is very famous. Remember, isn't it? Punjab, very famous. Or Lohri, very famous. And if you look at it in our tradition, in our culture, in our culture, such kind of gatherings would happen, and every family member would come, either for Lohri, very famous, in a chilly winter in the evening time, right on the middle of the street, whole traffic is jammed, and then you fire up, and you dance, you distribute prasadam, and whatever way they call it. Beautiful festival. Similarly, Durga Ka Jagran, whole night, and every family member would come. So what I'm trying to bring a point here is, in our culture, this is what meant to be a festival. This is what meant to be a party. Now, because we have got disconnected from it, therefore these days people go out, waste money, get drunk, get beaten up, and next morning wake up with somebody else. Their partner is missing because they both got drunk and whatnot. This is pretty common in the West. Anyway, so there was a big festival organized by Daksha, which was a yajna. So some of you can relate with Lodi or Durga Kajak, and you can understand how important this event was. There was no other. I mean, if you look at family get together, there used to be no other occasion where family would come together. Only other occasion apart from this was maybe a marriage. Again, it's a yajna, or else when a child would be going through certain samskara. Again, it's a Vedic rite. So, like the festival, Sudaksha is hosting a big party, a big yajna, and he has not extended the invitation to his son-in-law and his dearmost daughter. In this birth, Daksha had 16 daughters. Sati was the youngest of all and was dearest to Daksha. But apparently, Daksha did not invite Lord Shiva or his son-in-law. So that was the background of the story. Mother Sati gets disturbed about it. Sati wants to go. It's a festival. Who doesn't want to enjoy, be part of the festival? Family get together. Sati gives her reasons. Lord Shiva hears it peacefully. And after that, Lord Shiva gives his reasons why Sati should not go and why he should not go. So this was a storyline. Let's take a look at a few quick lessons that we can reflect and learn from ourselves. So first thing is, Daksha wanted to worship the Lord by performing yajna. Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Suridham sarvabhutanam yatvamam shanti nachati. However, Daksha sacrifice, which we'll see today, not today, maybe tomorrow we'll discuss that. Even just like the previous yajna was disturbed, the previous festival was disturbed and had a great difficulty in completing it, this yajna could not even get completed. Why? Because he wanted to worship Krishna, but simultaneously wanted to offend his great devotees. So we cannot serve the Lord, we cannot please the Lord if by our actions we are disturbing Vaishnavas or we are offending Vaishnavas. That's the first thing. Similarly, there is one yajna which we perform on everyday basis. What is that? Ainam yajna. And the purpose of that yajna is to please the Lord. We cannot really chant properly if by our action, conduct, and behavior we are offending Vaishnavas. This is something which we need to know. And therefore, we have 10 offenses. And the very first offense is to blaspheme the devotees who dedicated their life for propagating Krishna consciousness. So, this is something which we need to know in relation to the story of Shiva versus Daksha, Daksha versus Shiva. Second thing, lesson that we talked about, of course, delegation is very important for a leader to function himself, to grow himself, and to help others grow and empower. But when you're delegating, a leader has to be conscious about the person that he is delegating the authority. Is he properly situated or not? In case of Brahma, Brahma delegated, or Brahma empowered Daksha by making him the head of the Prajapatis. But Daksha was not, which we will see now, was not really situated in his consciousness. He was too much caught up with bodily identification, because of which he still maintained a grudge toward Lord Shiva. Similarly, in a spiritual society, when we empower, which we should, when we assign or give somebody a leadership role, is very important to measure or to understand that individual's consciousness. So where is the fault here? The fault lies with Daksha's consciousness. He's too much caught up with the bodily identification, I and mine. I am the father-in-law, his son-in-law. Although he's not understanding Lord Shiva, in spiritual maturity, is far much more mature than Daksha, but he's not able to see on that way. So his consciousness was at fault. Similarly, in a spiritual society, our endeavors as sadhaka should be not only on building skills and talents. Sometimes when we are too much caught up in producing results, unbeknown to us, we pay attention to those who have skills and talents. Yes or no? Look in the corporate world. What measures or what qualifies is your skills and talents, not much about your attitude and conduct. How much ever you may have a fight with the team or not, but if you're able to produce result, is what given weightage? Yes or no? But somehow we have brought that kind of mentality within the spiritual society also. Or else if we bring that, that could be very disastrous, as we'll see in this case study. So when we empower, we should measure the person's consciousness. So my question to all of you is, what could be some parameters by which we can measure the consciousness of an individual before we empower him let's say to host a program or to start a program, to give classes, to do XYZ things, what could be some of the parameters by which we can measure the consciousness? And Srila Prabhupada have given the formula. How often and how regularly that devotee attends the morning program. If you're having a regular morning program and a full morning program, whoever you are, your consciousness will be upright. Your consciousness will improve. That's the first parameter. What is the second parameter, which is very essential? Even if we have morning program, that could be for various reasons, social pressure, peer pressure, whatnot. What is the second reason which needs to be measured, which needs to be checked or evaluated before we empower anybody? So morning programming, your spiritual practices taken into consideration. What could be the second reason? Dealing with devotees. Well, that's a little difficult, dealing with devotees, to really understand. Some people by nature are polite. Some people by nature are aggressive, but does not mean that they mean that. What could be the other reason? Huh? Book reading. Book reading. Okay, book reading. These are fundamentals of spiritual life. There's something, intentionally having discussion on this because we are ending our year and we are about to start a new year. What should be our, when we enter into 2025, rather than crash landing into 2025, with what aspiration should we enter 2025? What should be my mission statement for 2025? What I would like to cultivate within myself and within our team. So we talked about morning program. What is the second thing? Yes. Huh? Yeah, accountability. Accountability. If you don't have accountability, it's very difficult to assess. So that's the point. So accountability allows us to overcome our weaknesses. Just like, take an example, yesterday evening we were talking about Mahabharata. The topic of discussion was the boiling point, the understanding the events and the personalities that led to the war of Kurukshetra. So Dhritarashtra, we were talking about relationship. There are two ways to relate with each other. One is attachment, one is affection. Affection means, affectionate dealing means three things. In affection dealing, you don't have expectation to receive anything. In affection dealings, you want to serve. And third, because you don't have any expectation, there is no fear of losing, there's no insecurity. There's no fear, no insecurity. Now you can do a course correction for that person. Even if he likes or dislikes, you're detached with that. But because you love and care for that person, therefore you'll do a course correction. That is called as affection, which Dhritarashtra didn't have for Duryodhan, while Krishna had that for Arjuna, and therefore he could do course correction. So what kind of relation Dhritarashtra had for Duryodhan? His relationship was what we call as an attachment. What attachment-based relationship? And I was making a point, Krishna makes it twice in Bhagavad Gita, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha, give up your attachment. And for parents, for leaders, for teachers, for mentors, for gurus, so much we have to become conscious about it. I can tell you, and with this point, you can now start evaluating your relationships, even with your mentors, even with your, maybe parents, and you'll see how people deal with you differently. Are they functioning with you on the level of attachment or affection? Now, what will happen in the case of attachment? The three things. One, the person is over dependent on you for his security and comfort. Because he's dependent on you, in other words, he has a lot of expectation from you. This relationship is not based on giving, this relationship based on receiving. Because he sees you as a potential for him, like the Dhritarashtra or Duryodhana as a potential for fulfilling his desire to remain the king. Similarly, when a parent or a mentor sees the pupil or the student, the child, as a source of his security, then such a person becomes attached to that person, and such a person becomes very insecure. What if this person leaves me tomorrow? And this insecurity leads to all the crisis. So two things, you become dependent, it leads to crisis, it leads to insecurity, which eventually leads to crisis. And the third thing, the most important thing, the role of a leader, as Krishna says, Yat Yat Achvati Shreshta Tat Tataro Evataro Janaha, or as Bhagavatam talks about, the goal of a parent, mother, guru, teacher, whatnot, is to do a course correction. But in such a situation, in such a relationship, the parent or the leader or the guru cannot do course correction because he's afraid or she's afraid if I do course correction, that person would leave me. And that was the relationship between Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan. So when you talk about delegation, empowering like Brahmaji empowered Daksha, is very important. Our relationship towards our dependent should be affectionate relationship, not attachment. We should not be worried about our interest. We should be worried about their interest. And we should be willing to do a course correction. How much ever the student or a child may like or dislike, it doesn't matter, but it is for the good of the child. So here, Brahmaji did empower Daksha, but it looks like these things had not happened. In our case, how do we empower? The things is first is the morning attendance, morning program attendance, to see the spiritual practices going good. And second thing is accountability. These are the two ways. So this is what we discussed about it. And then we also saw when Lord Shiva began to speak about Daksha, it seemed like reconciliation had not happened. They still had a conflict because of which Lord Shiva was afraid Daksha will not be kind to Sati just because of Sati's connection with Shiva. And this is what happens in bodily identification. When you're living with bodily identification, you don't only have a problem with the person that you have a problem with, you begin to have a problem with everyone associated with that person. And that's what happened with Daksha. In case of Sati, she exhibited her weakness, and particularly for a female, of course, we need to understand certain psychology for a male and female, and that discussion comes out here. A lady cannot tolerate social isolation. She needs to move around, she needs to have a social circle, and therefore, in the past, for our community, I have emphasized it many times. Our forum, our mothers need to have their forum. They need to come along, come together, maybe once in a week or something, maybe have a reading club, or maybe just come together, have kirtan together. They need to have their own social circle because that provides them a little security, a sense of security. And the next important point lesson was from the text number 11, where, Prabhupada writes, this was a weakness of Sati, or Sati became very emotional, disturbed, and she exhibited a weakness. And we learn a very important lesson from here. Sati was no ordinary person like you and I. Sati was Parvati. Sati is a representation of material energy, or she is the material energy. Devihi esha gunamaya mamamaya duratya. Or what Krishna is referring in Bhagavad Gita is my divine energy, very difficult to surmount, has herself become troubled. And that is the beauty of this world. I believe I elaborated on this point at length last time. Think of, there are so many examples in the history where great leaders, great personalities have made mistake. Can you think of some example? We see Sati's weakness here. Who else made a mistake? तो जो कोई और उदाहरण नहीं मिला ये कौन सा ग्रेट एग्जाम्पल था भाई? Oh, Gauranga, this was the least expected answer. It was like Vyasdev throwing ugly to Ganesh ji. I'm confused with the answer. Anyways, any great example, any example from the history of great personalities? Our Zoom fellows can speak, Abhishek, or you have locked them up? We can give them the chance to unmute, and I hope the sound is audible. So, any examples of great personalities? Great. Yudhishthira Maharaj, the gambling match yesterday evening, we spoke about. What else? Huh? Brahmaji. Brahmaji. What else? Indra. Yamraj. Indra. Okay, what else? Last time I spoke our example, I elaborated on that. Therefore, you should make some notes to be able to recollect. And then Kali Yuga memory, okay? Last Shiva, in context of Mohini Murti, you're saying, okay? Dashrath Maharaj, that's how the whole turn of event happened in Ramayana. Arjuna, weakness of heart at the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra. So many examples are there. And I was emphasizing on it, please do not become judgmental. The more neophyte we are, the more quick we are to judge others and find fault with others. You can reflect on this. If you have a strong judgmental side of your personality, highly opinionated, critical, it just shows how neophyte, how kacha we are in bhakti, how kanishta we are. because you have not learned enough from life experiences, and you're thinking because you have been practicing devotional life for a week, for a year or so, I've become so great and good. And wait and watch. Maya is observing you, and she's just laughing. बेटा अभी तो तेरा ट्रेलर भी शुरू नहीं हुआ, पिक्चर तो बाकी है, देख आगे आगे क्या होता है तेरा. So we need to be careful about it. We should not jump our guns. So like this, there were examples of it. Dhruv Maharaj, in case of Yaksha. All right, so these are some of the things that we discussed from Sati case. We also discussed something from Lord Shiva's situation. Lord Shiva versus Sukdev Goswami, we spoke about it. Fine, these are the things. And then there's some very important purport, text number 21, beautiful purport. Now Lord Shiva has begun to reply to Mother Sati, and Lord Shiva, in this particular purport, in text number 21, Prabhupada gives the reason, talks about the anger, psychology of anger. Why do people become angry? Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajaguna, Samandhava. Kama, Krishna says, desires. When desires are not fulfilled, it results into anger. And what was Daksha's desire? He wanted respect. Those who cannot command respect, they demand respect. And those who demand respect, these are the people who become highly egoistic. Now, this ego battle is nothing but is a cover-up for our insecurity. That was what Daksha was feeling. So Prabhupada talks about it, and Mother Sati had a question. Bhai, aap uthe kyun nahi? After all, he's your father-in-law, you could have gotten up, you could have offered respect. So text number 21 and 22 purport, Prabhupada gives a reason. He explains to whom do we offer obeisances, to whom we offer respect. There are a lot of people on the internet today, on social media, they just are ready to jump and find faults with our Sanskriti. So yesterday I was taking a look at something and I saw some comments. And in this particular situation, one person was offering obeisances to another person. And the people began to shoot. Oh, what is this? How can you touch the feet of a human? Human is human. The feet has to be touched only of God. You people in your culture, you are so deranged, and all nonsense. He began to speak about it. And then people were counter arguing everything. And I was like, well, yeah, when you talk about offering obeisances, when you don't understand whom we are offering obeisances, the obeisances are not offered to a person, the obeisances are offered to a Paramatma residing. Yes, correct. We don't offer obeisances to a person, but obeisances or respects are not offered to a person. When we see devotees, when we offer obeisance, it doesn't matter he's your junior or he's a senior. Like Prabhupada makes a point in one of the purport. When disciples offer obeisances, even Guru reciprocates by returning obeisances. It's not compulsory, but Guru may decide. It's not compulsory for a teacher to do towards a student, but it's optional. But sometimes they may reciprocate. Now, the reciprocation is what? For that, Kanishta may feel excited about, क्या बात है, मेरा भी कोई सेल्फ रेस्पेक्ट है, आज मुझे प्रणाम मिला है, तो हमारे वरिष्ठ मुझे स्वीकार रहे हैं कि मैं भी कितना महान हूं. And next day, if in case he offers respect, how many have that experience? If in case you offer respect, and today your senior have not reciprocated, तब आग में कितना, नहीं आग में नहीं, क्या कहते हैं, तब वो छाती में कितना जलन पैदा होता है. क्या हुआ, मेरे एडवांसमेंट का क्या हुआ, मेरा पतन हो गया. So for senior, it's optional. For junior, it's compulsory. But the respect is not offered only to a person. When we offer obeisances, we offer obeisances to the Paramatma within the heart of that living entity. That's the culture. So that was the subject matter here, and some other things. So I get, yeah. So most of the practical things have been discussed. Let's come back to our chapter number 4. So sorry for that little longer recap. Maybe I thought I'll just do it. So we are set on the storyline. We're set on some lessons. So now we're going to go every day. So you'll remain a little tuned up to this discussion. All right. Chapter number 4, Sati quits her body. So Lord Shiva ended chapter 3 by saying, Sati, so my recommendation to you is not to go. What will Sati do? And we can try to put ourselves in Sati's situation here. Now, the point was the point with Sati was emotionally attached. I like to make a little philosophical, analysis or give a reason here. The moment you get emotionally attached to something, it's very difficult to hear any other opinion. Yes or no? Maybe you're not understanding. Let me give an example. When we talk about this Eisenhower matrix, or the time matrix, to do, to attend, to delegate, to plan, to delegate, and to discard. The fourth quadrant is to discard. I believe recently I was speaking about it. So the fourth quadrant, to discard, the activities to discard, refers to which we recognize they are time wasters. Can you for a second think of certain things in your life which you know very well is a time waster? What could be that? Maybe spending too much time on social media, maybe unnecessarily going through some XYZ YouTube videos, or maybe just checking out WhatsApp message again and again. Somebody has sent me WhatsApp or not, maybe something like that, or maybe just gossiping around. But despite knowing that it's a time waster, we still do it day in and day out. How much ever you may hear about it, how much ever you may take New Year resolution that this particular year I will junk all my wasteful activities, but never changes anything. You know why? Despite knowing what is wrong, despite being told what is wrong, when we fail to give up and we continue to justify, there's only one thing, because we are emotionally attached to that thing. And why there's an emotional attachment? Because that activity gives me some gratification. The question is, as Krishna is asking through Bhagavad Gita, do you want me or do you want your petty gratifications? Raga Dvesha Vimuktastu. Second chapter, verse number 67. Freedom from regulated principle of life. So those who learn to control themselves, prasadam adhigacchati. This is the last line of the verse. Krishna says, those who learn to regulate themselves, those who can control themselves, let go of these demands, they become the recipient of divine blessings. So in second chapter, verse number 67, Krishna says, you receive the blessings of the Lord. And later on, the sixth chapter, verse number 17, Krishna says, Yukta hara vyarasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta sapno vabodasya yoga bhavati sadhukaha. He says the side product is such, not only you get blessing, the side product is you become free from all miseries. So my question is, despite knowing all this thing, why we fail to give up is because we have become emotionally attached. And look, in the case of Sati, was the same thing. She was emotionally attached. Now let's go back to a little bit in case of Arjuna. Was Arjuna emotionally attached to quitting, going to the forest? What do you think? Yes or no? Well, it was yes, because the strong reasons he gave, if he would not have given reasons, which means, he was strong enough, he was rational enough to understand. The reasons that he gave was all emotion driven. Oh, what is the use of winning the war if my friends, relatives are not there only? So he's seeing the friends, relatives within the Kauravas camp still. They're the same people who brought destruction to their life. And he's still able to relate to that. So how did Krishna counter those emotional attachments? He countered those emotional attachments by speaking about Brahma Gyan. In other words, talking about, the body, but spiritual. That is the reason Krishna spoke about. Otherwise, what is the relationship of Arjuna fighting or not fighting with Arjuna hearing the wisdom of, you're not the body, but spiritual? So unless we help the person move from the bodily consciousness, that person cannot give up his emotional attachment. Now, here in this case, Mother Sati is tuned to her identification. Now, a question can be asked, why did Lord Shiva did not give her Dehinosmin yatha dehi? O Sati, kaumaram yavanam jara. तुम जिसकी पुत्री हो इस जन्म में, पिछले जन्म में कोई और तुम्हारा माँ बाप था, अगले जन्म में कोई और होगा, वैसे अगले जन्म में कोई और ही हुआ, हिमवान, हिमवती. So Lord Shiva could have said, but this is not the case in case of Sati. Srila Prabhupada would explain the actual reason why Sati wanted to go to the sacrifice. And that we'll get to know in a short while. So, anyways, so the previous chapter ended with Lord Shiva giving his recommendation, Sati, you should not go. And I said Sati was emotionally attached. And if you're emotionally attached, you cannot just follow it. Yes or no? That's why we're talking about the Eisenhower matrix, the fourth quadrant to discard. We just cannot do it. And we all have our own struggles and we keep on justifying it. And in a similar way, Mother Sati reacted. How did Sati reacted? Let's take a look at chapter 4, text number 1, Maitrivacha. I'll read the translation to save time. The sage Maitreya said, Lord Shiva was silent after speaking to Sati, seeing her between decisions. Sati was very much anxious to see her relatives at her father's house. But at the same time, she was afraid of Lord Shiva's warning. Her mind unsettled, she moved in and out of the room as a swag moves this way and that. Prabhupada, that's a beautiful puppet. Sati's mind was divided about whether to go to her father's house or obey the orders of Lord Shiva. The struggle between the two decisions was so strong that she was pushed from one side of the room to another, and she began to move just like the pendulum of a clock. I want all of you for a second. Do you have some pen and paper, something to write? Just write down. I want you to a little bit reflect for a second. So you'll empathize, relate, and identify with Sati's situation, and maybe we can learn something from what's happening here. Please recall an incident where you found yourself in a fix when there were two opposing opinions given to you. And you were in a dilemma which one to follow. Your heart is longing to do something, but you have been told not to do. How much you found yourself stretched, confused, and troubled. Does anyone have this situation in their life? You wanted to do something and you were so attached to doing it. Or else you can put it this way, you knew what you wanted to do and you knew that you should take guidance, but you thought not to take a guidance because you knew if I took a guidance, I'm going to get an answer no. Better not to ask. This situation probably would have happened with all of us. Better don't ask. Let's say quite. If I ask, I know I'm going to get an answer no, but I want to do what I've decided to do. So, well, that's a secondary thing, you know. But in case if in a situation you've got an advice which is against what you wanted to hear, what kind of emotions you went through? Can you write down those adjectives? Were you angry, frustrated? Were you became doubtful? Or you became complaining? Were you finding the fault with your advisor, with your guide, with your parent, with your friend? What was going through you? And a little bit churn about your emotions. Then maybe we can see with what Sati was going through with it. And then we probably can understand what Sati did next. All right. Is our ISKCON कहते हैं Sangria? I don't see the camera on. Sorry, Blue Ridge. Where is our Blue Ridge candidate? So I should bring them. They should switch on the camera so I can see what's going on with them. All right. So, anyways, we all have gone through that crisis. And not only this, life throws such dynamics in everyone's life. Yesterday evening, we were talking about gambling match. Can you imagine what Yudhishthira Maharaj would have gone through when every opportunity was given to him? Okay, you lost all this. Now you put Sahadev on the bet. And if you win, you get everything. Can you imagine what a crisis you would be going through? In one situation, if I lose Sahadev. And if I win, I gain everything. What a crisis you would have had. Similarly, Arjuna had crisis on the battlefield. Sati have crisis. Sati faced crisis, and we all face crisis like this. So what did Sati did? She gave a very regular response that all of us would give generally, and then face consequences. So how did Sati react? Text number 2. Sati felt very sorry at being forbidden to go to see her relatives at her father's house. And due to affection for them, tears fell from her eyes. Shaking and very much afflicted, she looked at her uncommon husband, Lord Shiva, as if she were going to blast him with her vision. So now this was not the case of the loving glances that happens between a couple. These are different kind of glances that only husband knows, which you get to see after marriage. So here Sati is damn angry, so angry, and she's looking with her eyes filled with wrath and anger. Looks like the eyes becomes red hot that time, something like that glances. Prabhupada is beautiful thing, the purport from the third line. His wife Sati knew that her husband was equal toward everyone. So why in this case was he so unkind to his wife that he did not allow her to go to her father's house? This distressed her more than she could tolerate, and she looked at her husband as she was ready to blast him with her vision. In other words, since Lord Shiva is the Atma, Shiva also means Atma, it is indicated here that Sati was prepared to commit suicide. Another meaning of the word Aprati Purusha is the personality who has no rival. Since Lord Shiva could not be persuaded to give her permission, Sati took shelter of a woman's last weapon. What is that? Rona Dhona, weeping, which forces her husband to agree to the proposal of his wife. So we can learn something very important from Lord Shiva. Now, let me ask this. What kind of relationship Lord Shiva had towards Sati? Did he have attachment for Sati? Did he have affection towards Sati? What do you say? How many say attachment towards Sati? How many say he had affection towards Sati? So you understood about affection versus attachment? So he had affection, therefore he could not be persuaded. He was not afraid if Sati leaves him or not. He just wanted good for her, and therefore he was doing course correction. Text number 3. Thereafter, Sati left her husband, Lord Shiva, who had given her half his body due to affection. Prabhupada says what? Not attachment, due to affection. This is what mean by affectionate relationship. Please go back and look back into your relationship with your friends, with your family members, and with your seniors. Are you in a relationship, affectionate relationship, or an attached relationship? Be careful of that attachment. It's risky. Particularly in a spiritual forum, this is what becomes called as nepotism, etc. So be careful of that. Breathing very heavily because of anger and bereavement, she went to the house of her father. This less intelligent act was due to her being a weak woman. Now, how can Prabhupada say her to be a weak woman? She's Sati. What made Sati weak? Because of which Prabhupada is calling her weak. So Abhishek Prabhu, not aware. Apurva Govind Prabhu is saying her intelligence got covered by emotions. So the weakness refers to when you're emotionally driven. And such individuals ideally should not have any management role. You need to have a rational thinking. Well, what happens with emotions? You're often, you can't have a clarity. In emotions, you're always partial. While your emotions are set here, you will want to favor this person while you become partial to the other side. This is what it happens. And therefore, Prabhupada is calling her a weak woman. Therefore, traditionally, because of this quality, mothers are not given a management role, a leadership role, because unless they really are the bodily consciousness, which is not easy even for a man. For that reason, it's not about man and woman. It's not really for a conditioned soul, to really rise out of this bodily consciousness. But at least the body makeup and the precondition for a male is they're still rational, and they're trained accordingly. But ladies, by their makeup, is emotionally driven, and you give them a management, then enjoy the nice headache that comes along with it. There is emotional melodrama. Their messages will be so nice messages. Their comments will be so nice. How many of you heard from your mother, from your sister, and anything and everything they say, there's a hidden taunt. There is a taunting tone to it. How many of you can relate to it? Even with saying some simple message, even if they're appreciating or asking anything, I have so much notice. there is a taunt related to it, and you're wondering, just say thank you and finish it. Why the heck you have to hold everything to your past memories and relate to it? So such individual, you can see they're highly emotionally driven. Uh, One thing they can do nicely is, and allow them to do nicely, chant Hare Krishna and be happy and maintain distance. Otherwise, you want peace. Otherwise, they are emotionally driven, and if you get caught up too much in their association, they will destroy your rationality. They'll destroy. So that's the point happens here with Sati, and that's the reason Prabhupada is calling her a weak woman. And this all arises because of strong bodily identification. That's the point. So, yeah, that's the point Prabhupada writes. Let's go to text number 4. When they saw Sati living alone very rapidly, thousands of Lord Shiva's disciples, headed by Maniman and Mother, quickly followed her with his bull Nandi in front and accompanied by the Yaksha. So when all of them start, oh, Mother Sati is going, so what to do? So बैंड बाजा के सजाए मदर सती को उनके वाहन पे बिठाया और गाने बजाने के संग चल पड़े. It's very interesting. I mean, there is a fight going on between husband and wife. And what the followers of Shiva are doing? What do you understand of this? There's a fight going on between Lord Shiva and Sati. Lord Shiva doesn't want Sati to go. And Sati leaves the house, comes out of a 3 BHK. Well, Shiva didn't have any BHK. And she comes out, and everyone, this is not a private house affair because they didn't even have a room. They were living underneath a tree. So which means the followers were seeing everything what's happening. The followers known that Lord Shiva doesn't want, they had, and Mother Sati had already cried. She already wept, tried that Shiva would agree. Shiva did not agree. And she comes out and gets ready to leave. And here all the followers comes with band baja and brings her Vahan, puts her, I believe Nandi or something, puts her on the Vahan. And now she's going, and all of them with their bugles, their conches, their drums beating, and going in the mood of celebration. How do you justify this? What's happening here? This is such a beauty here. Such a beauty here. Can you see what's happening here? They were performing their dharma. It was their duty to accompany. They were not getting involved into the things which were beyond their comprehension. It is a matter not for me to judge who is right and wrong. It is a matter between Lord Shiva and Mother Sati. Our dharma is to do what we are supposed to do. And how foolish we have become today. Nobody has an understanding of their own dharma, and everyone is willing to think and pass comment about others. Yes or no? I see in our leadership forum also. Some youngsters will pass comments for GBCs and senior personalities like anything, without not even very conscious of what their dharma is, what ideally they should do. Therefore, in today's day and time, I would just have one piece of advice for you and for me. If you really want to be a practicing devotee and grow, learn to keep silent. Speak only when you are asked. Do not speak unnecessarily because you are just proving your foolishness. We have come from a very conditioned background, hardly any training in culture, in behavior, or not having any cultural understanding. Imagine what will people do today? They all are Sati is Shiva's follower, and Sati would have to come out. What would they say? Nahi, hame jab to Malik ka hukum nahi hai. They would have got cursed by Sati. And if Sati would have cursed them, who do you think Shiva would have taken side? Sati. Hey, you rascals, why are you disturbing? This is not your job. Your dharma is to follow. Why are you interfering in matters beyond you? Therefore, we should be very conscious about it. We should not act smart or over smart. And you can call it as a Kali Yuga symptom, a problem. Anyone and everyone wants to overthink, overcomment. And here they just came out and they followed the procession. They went as if there is a great celebration. They went as if Mother Sati had all the blessings of Lord Shiva. Because that was their dharma. And they followed and took Mother Sati to Daksha's abode. That was which was? Fourth, right? Text number 5. Disciples of Lord Shiva arranged for Sati to be seated on the back of a bull. I've already explained that. Let's read it. Beautiful. And gave her the bird which was her pet. They bore a lotus flower, mirror, and all such paraphernalia for enjoyment, covered her with a great canopy, followed by a singing party with drums, conch shells, and bugles. And the entire procession was as pompous as a royal parade. So it's very important. I'll reiterate this point. It's very important for all of us to ask, what is my dharma? What is my duty? And try to stick to it. We should not interfere in others' matters, particularly those matters which are beyond our jurisdiction, particularly in relationship to seniors. Maybe, let's say, some people have taken it for granted to comment whatever decision GBC body makes. So loosely they pass comments. We should not do that. See what's happening here. Text number 6. She then reached her father's house where the sacrifice was being performed, entered the arena where everyone was chanting the Vedic hymns. The great sages, brahmanas, demigods were all assembled there, and there were many sacrificial animals, as well as pots made of clay, stone, gold, grass, and skin, which are all requisite for the sacrifice. The two things have been highlighted in this verse. One, there was a chanting of Vedic hymns, and second is animal sacrifice. So Srila Prabhupada writes, there are 2 paragraphs, and each paragraph Prabhupada dedicates. One is for chanting of Vedic hymns, and second for animal sacrifice. Oh, animal sacrifice? You say the 4 regular principles, no meat eating. No meat eating is act of violence. Meat eating is act of violence. Animal sacrifice is also act of violence. So Prabhupada explains that. So first point about Vedic hymns, it is so important. We cannot have any auspiciousness. Can you imagine what have become of Vivaha ceremony today? Vivaha yajna, जहां पुत्री दान होता है, right? पुत्री दान कहते हैं, क्या कहते हैं? कन्यादान होता है. वहां पे आजकल कौन से हिम्स और कहते हैं चैंट्स होते हैं? हॉलीवुड बॉलीवुड गाने के. इतना ऑस्पिशियस एनवायरनमेंट हो जाता है, आप सोच सकते हो. और फिर मामा चाचा ताऊ जीजा पी पा कर आता है, लड़ाई झगड़ा करता है, और शादी में गाली गलौज होता है ना? है ना? यस यस, हाँ, तो वहां तो बहुत ही दिस इज वेरी ट्रू इन दिल्ली साइड. दिल्ली 50 साइड तो बहुत ही कॉमन है. अब तो भगवान जाने क्या होता होगा. So this is a yajna. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the first paragraph, to create an auspiciousness, there has to be Vedic chanting, Vedic hymns. And then Prabhupada said, well, sometimes there is a conflict between different sadhus. Which Vedic hymn should we chant? The Prabhupada says, therefore, it all has been reconciled into one Vedic hymn, that is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So for all of you who are in a pipeline to get married, or who would get married in the future, you get married to a devotee or non-devotee, but at least understand this point. And do not have this Hollywood and Bollywood. At least this much you should negotiate with your parents and the in-law family. But there has to be some kirtans to create some auspiciousness, because if the beginning is auspicious, the rest of the journey would be auspicious. Don't get so much carried away by your parents' demands of marriage, that the marriage happens like any marriage of a karmi. So Prabhupada says there should be first is about this, and second thing Prabhupada mentions the first canto, any yajna should be accompanied with Vedic hymns, and second is prasadam distribution. So make sure in your marriage there should be prasadam distribution. The cooking should be done by devotees. At least the least that you can do for yourself as a practicing devotee, even if the spouse to whom you're getting married is a devotee or not devotee, that's a different thing. But now if you create a favorable environment, you're creating a good opportunity even for a non-devotee to become a devotee, because you've started on a right notion. Second thing Prabhupada writes about animal sacrifice, Prabhupada says, well, just like in modern science, the efficacy of medicine is tested on animal, and if it works on animals, then it is launched for humans. Similarly, in Vedic times, the efficacy of mantras was tested on the animals. And how it was? By the process of animal slaughter, the Brahmana's purity was tested by Vedic chant. By the Vedic chant, was a Brahmana able to transmigrate that animal from a lower species to a human species? And if in case that would happen, then the Brahmana is qualified, his Vedic hymn and chanting is qualified. If in case the Brahmana would fail then he would get the reaction of killing of an animal, which means his next life would have to become an animal gets slaughtered. So this was the terms and condition of animal slaughter. But in Kali Yuga, the purity of Brahmanas, as we saw in the initial chapter, when Nandi cursed, Brahaspati, not Brahaspati, what was that? किसकी मुझे निकाली गई थी? Anyways, so that Brahmana, the one who went to test who is the greatest, Bhrigu Muni.
Bhrigu Muni.
So Bhrigu Muni and all the Brahmanas were cursed, the Prabhupada writes, because of that curse, the Brahmanas in Kali Yuga, and plus of what happened in first canto, Shingi, because he cursed Parikshit, and as a reaction of that, Brahmanas of this age became corrupted. Prabhupada, in fact, goes so much, he says, all the demons were in Kali Yuga born in Brahmana Skula. Okay, so that's the point about this. How are we doing with the time? I can't see the watch here. What's the time? Oh, we have to pause also. Huh? Okay, so I'll just take one or two verses and pause. So let me just give you a quick synopsis of this chapter. So there are around 37 verses, and these 37 verses are divided into 4 segments. First 10 verses talks about Sati going to Daksha sacrifice, getting offended. Then verses 11 to 23 talks about Sati becoming angry at Daksha's impudence and speaking to Daksha. Text number 24 to 27 talks about Sati quitting her body. And 28 to 37 talks about how Shiva's followers disrupt and destroys Daksha's sacrifice. So we'll cover the first 10 verses. We'll continue next time. So where were we? Verse number 6, right? Text number 7. When Sati with her followers reached the arena, because all the people assembled were afraid of Daksha, none of them received her well. No one welcomed her but her mother's sisters, who with tears in their eyes and with glad faces welcomed her and talked with her very pleasingly. Prabhupada writes in the purport. Third line, this shows that women as a class are very soft-hearted. And this is the gift given to a woman as a species. And therefore, motherhood is a gift given to a woman. Because of their soft-heartedness, a strong emotional nature, they can take care of the child, not the man, as much as the love a mother can give. Their natural affection and love cannot be checked by artificial means. Although the men present were very learned Brahmanas and Devta, they were afraid of their superior Daksha. And because they knew that their welcoming Sati would displease him, although in their minds they wanted to receive her, they could not do so. Text number 8. Although she was received by her sisters and mother, she did not reply to their words of reception. Although she was offered a seat and presence, she did not accept anything. For her father neither talked with her nor welcomed her by asking about her welfare. This is an incredible purport. Incredible purport. Before I get into the purport, I just wanted to briefly reflect. Have you ever had any family situation, any ceremony, any event where you felt disrespected or you felt deeply hurt because of the conduct of one of your relatives? Maybe you went for a family event, maybe you were not given the due respect, maybe they came to your house, something. How many of you, any one of you have here? If in case you had brothers and sisters and they got married, today married life means, or the married event means, or the marriage ceremony means some relatives getting offended. Yes or no? Therefore, the bride side and the groom side parents, they sit with a diary. They note down the name, kaun aaya, kya lekar aaya, humne kya diya. So delicate this relationship is. So if in case if you ever remember, what I'm saying is, if in case if you ever felt hurt, offended, or if in case you've had any reason of grudge toward any family member, now this purport tells you why you had that. Purport writes, the 5th line, beautiful point. The material bodily conception is so polluted that even upon slight provocation, all our relationships of love and affection are nullified. Let me ask this way. Have you seen any of your family members grew up having a very thick relationship because something happened, one minor incident happened, and now they don't speak to each other? How many of you have seen this? Please raise your hand. Everyone, literally. What do you say, those who are online? Have you seen that? So Prabhupada says this is what happens because of bodily identification. And now you come under Vaishnava family. Uh, Imagine you bring the same mindset in Vaishnava family. If you offer me respect, then I'll talk to you. Now, what is the idea of offering and receiving respect? Offering respect means if you listen what I say and you do it, that means you offer respect to me. This is the mindset for many, particularly those who think I'm senior. And if you don't listen to what I say, which means you're disrespecting me, then I quit the group. Then I quit the community. Then I leave the email group, WhatsApp group, or this group and that group. What are you doing? You're bringing your bodily consciousness, identification, and you're just throwing it up amongst the Vaishnava community also. So if I say this is all because of bodily identification, because of which sometimes you have good relationships, sometimes you have difficult relationships, and such a person remains always disturbed. And a very insignificant things will lead to crisis. And all our relationship, love and affection nullified. Body relationships are so transient that even though one is affectionate towards someone in a body relationship, a slight provocation terminates this intimacy. So much what happens between brothers and sisters these days, yes or no? Even the brothers. I remember, okay, let me give this one example. I was visiting my Mamaji's house, and he had many daughters and kids, siblings, son and daughter like that. And there was this, the third son and the fourth daughter. They would just not talk to each other. Brother and sister having fight with each other. So I reached my Mamaji's house. It was somewhere around afternoon time, and everyone was having lunch. My third brother, I'll not name them here now. He liked eating curd every afternoon, and so does my sister. And just so happened that day the curd was only available for one person. I don't know if you've ever seen such a dynamic. And I can tell you, it was a mouse and cat game. My sister, she picked up the curd. She poured it into her bowl and she was about to eat. And the brother went into the kitchen. He got to know there's no curd. So where was that curd which I saw in the morning? And my mama ji said, "Beta, teri behan ne le liya." And he went and grabbed for her plate. He picked it from her plate. And my sister became angry. She had a fork in her hand. Teri himmat kaise hui? And now my brother got frightened. She was really angry. And he began to run. And she's running. And they're running all over the house like a cat and mouse. And Joe se cheek rahe. And I entered the house. I can tell you, I was probably in the first or the second grade. I was thinking, why are they fighting? And my mommy said, "Beta, wo dahi ke upar lad rahe hain." मैंने कहा, "dahi क्यों?" I mean, okay, maybe later on they would have reconciled and whatnot. I'm just saying, can you see a very petty attachment for which you can fight? That's what Prabhupada is saying. This is what is of bodily relationship. They're so transient. And therefore, we all need to grow up to take shelter of Vaishnava community. Because ultimately, our true family would be Vaishnavas. Because you really can't have a relationship with somebody who is stooped in bodily consciousness. Let's say Shiva and Sati, maybe how advanced they would be, but Daksha wasn't. Then how can there be a relationship? There will always be a pain point. Shiva didn't do anything towards Daksha, but Daksha reacted like that and created a pain point for Lord Shiva. Text number 9, we'll make it the last verse for today. How did Sati reacted? Present in the arena of sacrifice, Sati saw that there were no oblations for her husband, Lord Shiva. Next, she realized that not only had father failed to invite Lord Shiva, but when he saw Lord Shiva's exalted wife, Daksha did not receive her either. Thus, she became greatly angry, so much so that she looked at her father as if she were going to burn him with her eyes. So, twice in this chapter, Sati's eyes turned red. First towards her husband, now towards her father. So, we'll talk about this आंखों के खेल के बारे में कल बात करते हैं. आंखों ही आंखों में इशारा हो गया, ऐसे बहुत गाने लिखे गए हैं. So, अभी आंखों में क्रोध का है. So, let's read the purport and pause for you today. By offering oblations in the fire while chanting Vedic mantra, Swaha, one offers respect to all the Devatas, great sages and Pitas, including Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu. It is customary that Lord Shiva is one of those who offer respects, but Sati, while personally present in the arena, saw that the Brahmanas did not utter the mantra offering oblations to Lord Shiva. Namaha Shiva Swaha. If you have attended Vedic sacrifice, you see that they offer. And Surya Namaha Swaha. So those are different way of offering. She was not sorry for herself, for she was ready to come to her father's house without being invited. But she wanted to see whether or not her husband was being respected. To see her relatives, her sister's mother was not so important. Now Prabhupada is giving the reason why did she came. Even when she was received by her mother and sister, she did not care, for she was most concerned that her husband was being insulted in the sacrifice. When she marked the insult, she became greatly angry, and she looked at her father so angrily that Daksha appeared to burn in her vision. Hare Krishna. What happens next? We'll continue tomorrow morning, same time, 7:45 a.m. We'll read from the text number 10 onwards. We pause here for today. Anyone has any question or a comment, we can take it, or else we pause it here for today. All right. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki